All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely. Always ready to dig into some interesting data.
Well, today we've got Intel's Q4 2024 earnings to unpack. Got their earnings presentation and press release right here.
Oh, yeah. Those things can be dense.
No kidding. So we'll break it all down, whether you're prepping for a big meeting, thinking about investing, or just want to know how this tech giant's doing.
Sounds like a plan. Where do we start?
Let's start big picture. Intel actually beat their own projections for the quarter. Good sign, right?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Revenue did beat guidance, yeah, but it was still down 7% year over year. Ended up at 14.3 billion.
Huh. So it's kind of a mixed bag then.
Yeah, earnings per share tell a similar story. Non-GAAP EPS was $0.13. Beat the outlook, but still a lot lower than last year.
So doing some things right, but facing some headwinds.
You got it. Beating their own guidance. That suggests they're managing costs well, getting more efficient. But the year-over-year decline, that's a red flag, shows some serious challenges in the market.
Okay, so how's Intel responding to all this? What's their plan of attack?
Seems like they're going back to basics, doubling down on their core strength, those x86 processors. For PCs and data centers.
Back to their roots, huh?
Mhm.
But isn't the PC market kind of, fading away? Everyone's all about mobile and cloud these days.
Don't count the PC out just yet. Especially with AI coming into the picture. Intel is going all in on AI-powered PCs. They're aiming to ship 100 million of these things by the end of 2025.
Wow, 100 million AI PCs. That's a bold move. Can they actually pull that off?
It's a big gamble for sure. It's still early days for AI TCs, hard to say who will come out on top. But Intel, they've got some advantages going for them.
Like what?
Their x86 architecture expertise, the relationships they've built with PC makers, their investments in AI software, gives them a decent starting point.
Yeah.
But get this, they're not going at it alone.
No, they're teaming up with someone. That's interesting.
Yeah. They've actually joined forces with their biggest rival, AMD. They've created an advisory group to work together.
Wait, Intel and AMD
Yeah.
working together? That's wild.
You're telling me. The goal is to make sure everything's compatible, that software development goes smoothly for x86 processors. It's a pretty big deal.
Definitely a sign of the times.
Yeah.
The tech world's changing so fast. Seems like no one can do it all alone anymore.
But even with teamwork, Intel's still got some hurdles to overcome. We talked about their data center and AI segment. How's that looking?
Not great. Revenue was down 3% year over year.
Yikes. Are they losing ground to NVIDIA in that space?
There's some serious competition there for sure.
Yeah.
NVIDIA's been making big waves with their GPUs. They're really well suited for AI workloads.
So what's Intel doing to fight back?
Well, they're not throwing in the towel. They're still innovating, still rolling out new products.
Any examples?
Take the Dell PowerEdge XE7740 server, uses Intel Xeon processors and their Gaudi AI accelerators. Those are specifically designed for AI. Plus, they're forming these strategic partnerships, trying to expand their reach. So they're not just relying on their own tech. They're tapping into what others are doing too. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But this whole foundry business thing really caught my eye. They're going to be making chips for other companies.
Yeah, and that's a big shift for them. They're known for designing and making their own chips, right? But now they're opening up their factories, becoming a contract manufacturer, a foundry.
That is a huge change. Why are they doing that? Just to diversify? Or is there a bigger strategy at play here?
Probably a little of both. The chip shortage globally, that's really shown how important a resilient supply chain is. And Intel sees this as their chance to jump into the foundry market. Plus, it lets them use their manufacturing smarts, those advanced process technologies to make more money and maybe even boost their position in other markets.
They're going all in on this.
Yeah.
And they got almost $8 billion from the U.S. CHIPS and Science Act to help them, right?
Exactly. That funding's a huge win for them. Helps their ambitions. And it's not just money. They're making some serious progress on the mic side, too. Intel 18A, their most advanced manufacturing process yet. It's almost ready to go. Production's ramping up in 2025.
Wow, 2025 is shaping up to be a big year for Intel. New process tech, this whole foundry push, AI PCs. A lot to keep track of. Okay, but let's not get too far ahead. We got to talk about their Q1 2025 outlook. They're projecting revenue between 11.7 and 12.7 billion. What do you think?
Well, it tells me the road ahead might still be a little bumpy, those numbers. They point to some continued challenges. Probably because of the whole macroeconomic situation and the industry still adjusting inventory.
So not quite out of the woods yet, but they're showing signs of life and a willingness to adapt. Seems like their future hinges on how well they handle these transitions. the tech side and the business side?
You nailed it. Intel's at a crossroads right now. They're making big moves, taking risks, and they're betting big on their vision. It's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
Totally. Feels like a high-stakes chess match, with Intel making strategic moves to stay ahead of the competition.
That's a great analogy. And like a good chess player, they're thinking several moves ahead, trying to outmaneuver everyone and grab those new opportunities. But they're not just playing against other companies. There's the global economy, geopolitical stuff, tech advancing at lightning speed. It's a lot to handle.
Yeah, it's a multi-dimensional game. No easy answers. They need to be agile, adaptable, and ready for anything.
Exactly. And let's not forget the human element, all these numbers, all this corporate strategy, but it's real people behind it all, right? Driving innovation, dealing with all these changes. They're the ones who make Intel's vision a reality.
That's a really important point. It's easy to get lost in the financials and the technology and forget about the people. So speaking of the people at Intel, they've been facing some big challenges too, right? Tough decisions, all that.
Absolutely. Multiple rounds of layoffs, never easy. And those tough choices about where to put their resources, which projects to prioritize, it's all about creating a leaner, more agile company, one that can react quickly when things change.
It's a tough balancing act.
Yeah.
Being financially responsible, but still investing in growth. So let's talk about those future growth areas. We touched on AI, their foundry business, but what else are they focused on?
Well, sustainability is a big one for them. It's a growing concern across all industries, right? Intel's setting ambitious goals to shrink their environmental impact and be more responsible with their sourcing.
Good to hear. It shows they're thinking long term. It's not just about profits. So overall, it seems like Intel's going through a transformation, reinventing themselves for this new era of computing, the era of AI, edge computing, and this crazy global landscape.
You nailed it. It's a journey full of challenges and exciting opportunities. We'll be watching closely, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll keep you updated on what's happening. But for now, let's zoom in on some of those specific initiatives they're working on. We've heard about a lot of projects and programs, but what really stands out to you?
That's a great question. Let's start with their AI strategy. They're not just focused on AI-powered PCs. They're going all in on AI hardware and software for data centers, edge devices, even self-driving cars. They want to be leaders in AI across the board.
So it's a holistic approach. They're not just dipping their toes in.
Exactly. They're trying to build a complete AI ecosystem. They believe AI is going to be the big growth driver in the coming years, and they want to be right there leading the charge.
That's a bold vision. But there's a lot of competition, right? NVIDIA, Google, they're all making big investments in AI.
For sure. The AI market is crazy competitive. But Intel, they've got some aces up their sleeve. Their chip expertise, their long history of innovation, their global reach. Plus, they're good at partnering with other companies, which is crucial in the fast-paced world of AI.
Sounds like they're using a multi-pronged approach, leveraging their own strengths and working with others.
Exactly. That's the winning formula in this market.
Okay, so we talked about their AI play. What else is on your radar?
Their foundry business is definitely worth keeping an eye on. They're not just building chips for themselves anymore. They're opening up those factories, making chips for others, and investing a ton in new manufacturing tech.
Right, we talked about that earlier. But what are the biggest challenges and opportunities with this move? It's a big step away from their traditional business model.
It is a big shift, no doubt. And there are some hurdles. They got to convince potential customers that they can deliver, right? High-quality chips on time and at a good price. Plus, they got to build up their network, design houses, IP providers, packaging and testing companies, building that whole ecosystem.
It's not just about having the best tech, is it? It's about relationships, trust, all that stuff.
Absolutely. Building that takes time and effort. But if they pull it off, the payoff could be huge. The foundry market is massive and growing fast, and Intel is well positioned to grab a big piece of it.
It's a risky move, but a potentially rewarding one. But for now, let's bring it back to their Q4 2024 earnings. Let's dig deeper into some of the key numbers. They mentioned a lot of figures, but what really jumps out at you?
The revenue breakdown by business unit, that's always interesting. It shows us where they're making their money and how each part of the business is doing.
Okay, let's break it down then. What's the story there?
Well, their client computing group, that's where the PC processors live, right? They saw a small dip in revenue year over year. Not too surprising given how mature the PC market is and everyone moving towards mobile devices.
Yeah, the PC market isn't exactly setting the world on fire these days. But Intel's betting big on AI PCs. Maybe that'll be their saving grace.
That's what they're hoping for. But it's hard to say if AI PCs will be enough to revive the PC market. It's still early days, a lot of unknowns.
Okay, so their PC business is facing some challenges. What about their data center and AI group? That's been their big growth driver, right?
Yeah, it has been, but they saw a drop in revenue year over year there too. That's a little worrisome.
What's going on there?
Well, the competition's fierce, especially from Nvidia. Plus, spending on cloud services is slowing down. It's not an easy market right now.
So not all sunshine and rainbows in the data center world either.
Nope. But they are rolling out new products, trying to stay ahead. Those new Xeon scalable processors, they're designed for tough workloads, things like AI and machine learning. Plus, they're investing in new technologies like Optane persistent memory, which is pretty cool stuff.
Sounds like they're not giving up without a fight.
Yeah.
Still investing in R&D, trying to stay innovative.
Exactly. They got to keep moving in this market. Can't stand still.
All right, so we covered their client computing group and their data center and AI group. What about their other business units? What are we seeing there?
Well, their network and edge group, that one actually saw a little increase in revenue year over year.
Oh, interesting. What's driving that growth?
It's all about networking, connectivity, and edge computing, all growing markets. They're making good progress there.
That's good to hear.
Yes.
So they are finding success in some areas.
Yeah, and they're putting a lot of resources into these markets, seeing them as key for future growth. Edge computing is a big focus for them. That's all about processing data closer to where it's created instead of sending it to the cloud.
So it's like a decentralized approach to data processing.
Exactly. And it's getting more and more important as we connect more devices to the internet. Think self-driving cars, smart cities, industrial automation, all that stuff.
That's fascinating. I'm curious to learn more about Intel's edge computing strategy. But for now, let's talk about Mobileye. That acquisition they made a few years back has been a big part of their story, right?
Oh, yeah, big time. Mobileye, they're the leaders in advanced driver assistance systems, ADAS,
Like, yep.
and autonomous driving tech. Their revenue's been steadily climbing.
Impressive. So it sounds like that acquisition was a smart move.
Seems like it. Mobileye has given Intel a solid footing in the car market, which is growing like crazy. They're well positioned to ride the self-driving car wave.
So overall, it seems like Intel's Q4 2024 earnings are a bit of a mixed bag. Some challenges in their main markets, but also some wins in those new and emerging areas. They're pouring money into innovation and making some bold moves.
You got it. It's a dynamic situation, always changing, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it all unfolds over the next few years.
Totally. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, the human element. We talked about all these numbers and strategies, but what about the people behind it all? The folks actually making all this happen? What are they facing?
That's a great point. It's easy to forget about the people. The tech world is super demanding, and the pace of change is crazy. It can be both exciting and really stressful.
Right, it's a high-pressure environment. It takes a special kind of person to handle that.
hmm
So what are some of the specific challenges that Intel employees are dealing with?
Well, one of the toughest things is just keeping up with the technology. It changes so fast. New stuff is popping up all the time. Employees got to be constantly learning, adapting, figuring out new concepts and how to use them in their work.
That sounds exhausting, like a never-ending marathon.
It can be. But it's also what makes the tech world so exciting. Always something new to learn, to explore. For people who love technology, it's a pretty rewarding career.
I can see that. But it's not just the tech, right? There's pressure to innovate, to compete, all that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The competition in tech is fierce. Everyone's trying to outdo each other, puts a lot of pressure on employees to deliver, and to deliver fast.
High stakes, high pressure, right?
Exactly. And that can be tough on people. Companies like Intel, they need to create a good work environment, supportive, healthy, where employees feel valued.
It can't just be about the bottom line. It's got to be about the people, too.
Hmm.
So how's Intel doing in that department? Are they creating a good place to work?
They're aware of the challenges, that's for sure. And they're trying to make things better, offering different benefits, programs, things like flexible work, on-site childcare, mental health resources. And they're pushing for diversity and inclusion, making sure everyone feels welcome.
Good to hear. It seems like they're trying to create a more human, more supportive workplace. But let's be real, no company's perfect. And Intel's had its share of criticism about their culture.
True, they have. Lawsuits, allegations, all that. But they've acknowledged it, and they are taking steps to fix it. New policies, training, and trying to be more transparent, more accountable.
So it's a work in progress, but it seems like they're on the right track.
It seems that way. They're putting in the effort, and that's what matters.
All right, we covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We talked earnings, their strategies, the challenges, the opportunities. But before we move on, I want to leave our listeners with a few key takeaways. What are the most important things to remember about Intel right now?
Great question. Here are a few things to keep in mind. First, Intel is at a crossroads, facing big challenges but making big changes. Second, they're going all in on AI, edge computing, and the foundry business. Huge potential there, but also some risks. Third, they're spending a lot on innovation, on R&D. They can't afford to fall behind. And finally, they're making an effort to create a more diverse, inclusive, and supportive workplace. They're realizing that people matter.
Excellent points. It'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out. But for now, let's take a short break and come back to talk about some of the specific technologies that are shaping Intel's future.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. All right, so now that we've got the lay of the land with Intel, their financials, and their position, let's take a closer look at some of their tech.
Yeah, let's dive into the nuts and bolts. We talked about Intel 18A before the break. What makes it so special? You said it could be a game changer.
It really could be. Think of process technology like a recipe for chips. The smaller the number, in nanometers, the more transistors you can squeeze onto a chip. More transistors mean faster, more efficient processors.
So it's all about miniaturization.
Yeah, it's a race to the bottom, in a
Uh,
way. Intel 18A, that's their most advanced process yet, gets them back in the game with companies like TSMC and Samsung. They've been leading the pack.
Okay, so Intel's playing catch-up. How does this affect their foundry business? Will this new tech attract new customers?
That's the whole idea. A cutting-edge process like 18A is a big draw for those foundry customers. Companies that need the absolute best performance, the best power efficiency, they're going to want access to this kind of technology.
Got it. So Intel's banking on this to give them an edge in the foundry market. What about their existing products? Any other cool tech they're highlighting in these reports?
Well, their Gaudi AI accelerator stands out. It's specifically designed for deep learning, the core of a lot of AI applications. Remember how we talked about Intel facing tough competition in the data center segment? Gaudi is a big part of their strategy to fight back.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned those Gaudi accelerators are used in those Dell PowerEdge servers. Are these Gaudi chips going head-to-head with NVIDIA's GPUs then?
Kind of. It's a battle for who's going to win over the data scientists and AI developers. NVIDIA and Intel, they both want to offer the best hardware and software for AI development.
So how do those Gaudi chips compare? Do they have any advantages or are they just trying to catch up?
Good question. Intel says Gaudi offers a great mix of performance and power efficiency. Makes it a good value for those AI workloads. They're also focusing on the software that works with Gaudi, making it easier for developers to use. But in the end, it's the market that decides.
Sounds like Intel is pushing the limits with their manufacturing and AI hardware. What about software? Even the best chips need good software, right?
Couldn't agree more. Intel knows this, which is why they're putting so much effort into software optimization and development tools alongside their hardware. For instance, they've been working on this thing called One API. It's a unified programming model. The goal is to make software development easier across all sorts of processors, CPUs, GPUs, FPGAs, all of them.
Okay, so one API is about making it easier for developers to write code that runs well on Intel's hardware. Does this tie into their AI PC push?
Absolutely. One API is crucial for getting AI capabilities onto those PCs. It lets developers add AI features to their apps using the CPU and any AI accelerators in the system.
So one API is kind of like the unsung hero behind the scenes, making all this cool new tech work together.
Exactly. It's the glue for their software strategy. But there's another piece of the puzzle we haven't talked about yet. Remember how Intel is jumping back into the foundry business? That brings a whole new set of software challenges.
Right. If they're making chips for other companies, those companies will need the right tools to design their chips and make sure they work with Intel's manufacturing process.
You got it. They need specialized software tools for that. That's where electronic design automation tools come in. EDA tools. Chip designers use them to create and test their chip designs before they send them off to be manufactured.
So they got to make sure these EDA tools are top-notch if they want their foundry business to succeed.
Exactly. It's all about building a complete ecosystem. And that's why they're partnering with companies like Cadence and Synopsys. Those are the big names in EDA tools. Intel's working closely with them to make sure their foundry offering is attractive to customers.
Sounds like Intel's trying to cover all the bases. New process tech, AI accelerators, software tools, partnerships with EDA vendors. It's a lot to juggle. Are they spreading themselves too thin or are they doing the right thing?
It's a fair question. They are taking on a lot at once, which could lead to some challenges, keeping their focus, managing resources. But these initiatives, they're all connected, they all work together.
Can you give us an example of how that works?
Sure. Their push into AI, for instance, benefits from their investments in both hardware and software. Their new process technologies allow them to build powerful and efficient AI accelerators, while their software tools make those accelerators easier to use.
So it's like a win-win situation. Their investments in one area help them in other areas.
Exactly. And that's what gives them the potential to really stand out from the crowd. But of course, it all comes down to execution.
Yeah, having a plan is great, but actually delivering on it is what matters. What are some of the biggest challenges Intel might face?
Well, talent is a big one. Attracting and keeping the best people. They need the best engineers, designers, software developers, you name it. And they need to create a culture where people want to work, where innovation happens.
We talked about their workplace culture earlier and some of the issues they've had. Do you think they've done enough to fix things? Make Intel a good place to work?
They've made progress, but there's always room for improvement. The tech industry is known for its demanding work culture, long hours, lots of pressure. Intel needs to find that balance. High performance, but also employee well-being.
It's a tough balance to strike. And it's not just about hiring the right people. They also need to make sure they're putting their resources in the right places, focusing on the right projects.
You're absolutely right. They can't try to do everything at once. They got to prioritize, focus on the things that will make the biggest difference in the long run.
So execution is key. They got to make sure all these different pieces fit together. But what about things outside their control? What are some of the risks and challenges that they can't really plan for?
The global economy is a big one. If the economy slows down, that could hurt demand for their products, especially from businesses and data centers. They're also exposed to things like trade wars, supply chain problems, all that geopolitical stuff.
Right, we talked about the conflict in Ukraine and the tensions between the U.S. and China. Those are definitely wild cards.
Totally. And let's not forget about the competition. NVIDIA, AMD, TSMC, Samsung, these are tough competitors. They're all innovating, pushing the limits.
It's a constant battle to stay ahead. It'll be interesting to see how Intel handles all of this and takes advantage of the opportunities out there.
Definitely. That's what makes following Intel so interesting. They're always pushing the envelope, and their story tells us a lot about what's happening in the tech world as a whole.
It's a reminder that even the biggest companies aren't invincible. But it also shows how resilient they can be, how adaptable.
You said it. They've been through a lot, but they're still here, still innovating, still trying to shape the future of technology.
All right, we've talked about the tech, the challenges, the opportunities. But what does all this mean for the average person? How will Intel's innovations affect our lives down the road?
That's a great question, and it's one we should all be thinking about. Intel's tech is a big part of our everyday lives. Our phones, laptops, the cloud that powers everything. It's all built on Intel chips.
They're kind of like the hidden engine that runs our digital world. So how will their innovations change things?
Their focus on AI is huge. AI could revolutionize so many things. Healthcare, education, transportation, entertainment. Intel's playing a key role in developing a hardware and software that will make all of that possible.
So we can expect to see more AI-powered stuff in the future, thanks to Intel.
Absolutely. And that AI stuff will be more powerful, more efficient, more user-friendly. It'll learn from us, anticipate what we need, and make our lives easier, more enjoyable.
That was amazing. But AI also has a dark side, right? Job losses, bias, privacy concerns.
Those are all legitimate concerns, and we need to address them as a society. AI is a powerful tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. We need to make sure AI is developed and used responsibly and ethically.
We need to be smart about how we use AI. Make sure it benefits everyone.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to have open and honest conversations about AI, the good and the bad, experts, policymakers, the public. Everyone needs to be involved in making sure AI is used in a way that aligns with our values and goals.
So it's not just about the technology itself. It's about the bigger picture, the ethics, the impact on society.
Absolutely. Technology is never neutral. There are always social and political implications, and we have a responsibility to shape those implications in a positive way.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
So to wrap up this part of our deep dive, here are a few key takeaways. First, Intel is at a turning point. They're facing challenges, but they're also making big changes to position themselves for the future. Second, they're betting on AI, edge computing, and the foundry business. Huge potential there, but also risks. Third, they're investing heavily in innovation and R&D. They can't afford to fall behind. And finally, they're trying to create a more diverse, inclusive, and supportive work environment. They're realizing that taking care of their employees is crucial.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So let's take a short break and come back to talk about their Q1 2025 outlook and what it could mean for their future. All right, we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into Intel's Q4 2024 earnings. We've covered a lot: their financials, their strategies, what the competition looks like, even some of the ethical stuff around their technology.
Yeah, we really went deep. Got a good sense of where Intel stands now and what their future might look like.
For sure. But before we finish, I want to touch on one last thing: their outlook for Q1 2025. They're saying they expect revenue between $11.7 and $12.7 billion. What do you think?
Sounds like they're expecting a bit of a rough start to the year, those numbers. They're lower than their Q4 revenue.
Yeah, not exactly a home run forecast.
It's a realistic outlook, though. The global economy's shaky, and the whole industry is still figuring out their inventory. Intel's not immune to that.
Right. It's all connected.
Yeah.
But this is just a short-term prediction, right? Their long-term success still depends on how well they execute their plans and grab those opportunities in AI, edge computing, and that foundry business.
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Intel's proven they can adapt, they can innovate. They've been through tough times before and always come out stronger.
They've got the experience, and they're not afraid to push the boundaries. So, as we wrap up, let's bring it back to our listeners. We've dug into Intel's earnings, looked at their strategies, talked about what's happening in the industry, but what does it all mean for you?
If you're thinking about investing in Intel, well, they're a company in transition, some bumps in the road ahead, but they're making big bets on the future. Their success depends on how well they execute their plans, handle the competition, and address those ethical concerns around their tech.
And for all the tech enthusiasts out there, Intel is still a major player. They're right there at the cutting edge of AI, edge computing, advanced chip making, all that cool stuff that's shaping the future.
And for anyone just curious about how the world works, Intel's story is a window into how technology is changing everything. It's a story about innovation, competition, and the constant drive to push forward.
It's a story that's still being written. We'll see what the next chapter brings. But for now, we hope you got a better understanding of what Intel's doing and what's happening in the tech world.
Stay informed, keep those conversations going, and decide for yourself what you think about the future of tech and how it'll impact all of us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.